8:29. All right. Good morning, everybody. We're going to get started. My name is Kevin Law. I'm the co-chair. And good morning and welcome to the Joint Metro North and Long Island Railroad Committee. As I normally do, I took the 634 to St. James, transferred at Jamaica, went to Atlantic Terminal, took the 5 here. I want to thank the men and women who got me here safely and on time. And I mean that. Last meeting, some may have thought there was a rift between the Long Island Railroad and the Metro North, and I assure you we are both advocates for our region, but we understand our fiduciary obligations are to the entire system. And so don't read in between our advocacy efforts and what our obligations are, because we are on the same page. And my co-chair, Susan Metzger, who's not here with us today, acknowledges the same. I'm going to ask Stephen Papandan to brief us on the, give us a safety briefing. Stephen? I'm sorry?
Your safety is of foremost importance to the MTA. Therefore, we ask that you listen to the following instructions. In the event of an emergency, notify emergency personnel in the room and 911 should be called. If an alarm sounds, wait for a public address announcement and follow instructions. If told to go to another floor or to evacuate the building, leave all unessential items behind and use stairwell A just across the main hallway or stairwell D down the hallway past the elevators. An automated external defibrillator, AED, for use by trained personnel is in the main hallway just past the elevators. Thank you and have a safe day.
Okay, thank you. Before we get to the public portion and the public comments period, I know we just all read recently the latest IG report on overtime. I understand it's going to be discussed more fully at the Finance Committee meeting and at the board meeting. But as I've shared with Phil, the way I read it, I was troubled. It seemed like a lot of the issues were on the organization's part. And I look forward to hearing from him in his president's report about the steps that are being taken to address some of the issues raised by management and the organization on those matters. With that, again, now Stephen will begin the public comment period.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have 4 public speakers today and request that each speaker limit comments to 2 minutes and to only address matters on the agenda for the meeting. The first speaker is Orrin Getz, followed by John Michno.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Orrin Getz, and I'm the Vice Chairman of the Metro North Rail Community Council. The best way to describe New Jersey Transit is opaque. They tell us very little about what is going on. I've noticed that the service on the Pascack Valley line has become more reliable. However, we do not have much information from New Jersey on west of Hudson services. I understand that there's going to be a schedule change on November 3rd and another one in December. However, we don't know much about these schedule changes. New Jersey Transit has recently graduated a few engineers from their training class. However, we still do not know when our second weekday Metro North Express train on the Pascack Valley line and the early Friday getaway train will be restored. I understand that New Jersey Transit is months behind in installing positive train control, but we don't know what New Jersey Transit is doing to meet the December 31st, 2020 deadline for PTC installation. New Jersey Transit has been working with Parsons on their PTC installation project. The upcoming MTA capital program for the years 2020 and 24 may be a problem for west of Hudson projects. Although $187 million was supposedly set aside for west of Hudson in the capital program, this amount may be not enough for our important capital program. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is John Michno.
Hello. Your social media team lied to us when they said we'd see no more mainline shutdowns for the rest of this year. As I see, there's one for November 16th and 17th in this book. This is not a way you treat your riders. And just like the last time, no shuttle buses are being provided in place of train service. NICE is not an alternative, especially when it doesn't show up. Like on October 5th, coming home from taking the train to Garden City, and then the N4041 didn't show up, and I wound up having to walk 30 minutes to get home to Mineola. No one is taking buses to Hempstead. I don't think you have any idea of how unsafe that area is. Not to mention, it is further away from Mineola than Garden City. Mr. Ing said last time when busing was provided, it didn't get much ridership. Well, that is another lie. I have photos to prove that there was plenty of people, and I will share them with you. Reading over this book, it is assumed most people find other means. What about those who can't? You have an obligation to provide alternative transportation. How do you expect people in Westbury to get to Garden City? I have this bus schedule. See for yourself. Last bus from Hicksville is just after 10 p.m. on Sunday. NICE was not providing extra service. It must be a nice little racket you have going on with the taxis, Ubers, and Lyfts, so stranded people get ripped off. And then to say I have a perception that we are being discriminated against. It is hardly a perception when everyone else gets substitute busing except us. And then to completely blow off my concerns about safety at Mineola and talk about Babylon. That's some chutzpah. What you are doing is an attack on my life. I need safe, reliable transportation to get around. It is bad enough that you have the goal not to honor reduced fares for us disabled on the morning trains. Most of you have no idea what we go through and only care about your own kind of Wall Street finance professionals. You have no heart the way you treat us. You're not getting away with this. And if some politician from Metro North can go over their time like the last time, so can I. That's some double standards right there. And I want to give my thanks and appreciation to the railroad employees who get us there safely. They should not be demonized. And I give Jano Lieber credit for engineering this project. It needs to be done. But we need our shuttle buses, and I won't rest until we get them.
The next speaker is Jason Pinheiro, followed by Murray Bowden.
Good morning, Phil and Kathy. I'm back after a small health scare. First of all, I want you guys to address the minor development that happened on October 13th near Jamaica. No explanation was provided why this development happened, why the National Transportation Safety Board wasn't involved. One thing I want to say, we need more transparency. And that's one word that I'm going to say constantly, transparency. Because as a rider of New York City Transit, Metro North, and Long Island Railroad, I need transparency. And I know that I already spoke to some board members, but there's one in particular that doesn't represent the city, that is deaf in life. And that person represents Westchester County. And if you represent Westchester County, you need to be more vocal like everybody else. If you can't be vocal, step aside and let other people do your job. That's all I have to say.
The next speaker is Murray Bowden.
My name is Murray Bowden, and I'm a whistleblower. My job is to present you with information that needs to be corrected, and it's your job to correct it. I've sent the pertinent information to all of you in various forms. It's your job to fix these things, not mine. My time's over. My generation should get off the scene as quick as possible. It belongs to my grandchildren and their generation. This is a different world that I came to when I started coming here. It's your responsibility to look at the things and the information that's presented to you from me and others and do something about it. This is a changing world, and on behalf of my grandchildren and others, I want to thank all of the people at the MTA who have helped me over the years, and there have been hundreds. There are good people here. Help them. Thank you.
That concludes the speakers for today.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the minutes. I'll take a motion by Veronica, seconded by Neil.
So moved.
Any comments, revisions, additions? All in favor? All right, motions or minutes are approved. 2019 work plans. Phil, any changes to the Long Island Railroad work plan?
No changes to the work plan.
Kathy, any changes to the Metro-North work plan?
No changes to the Metro-North work plan.
I'm now going to hand it over to Phil for the Long Island Railroad report. And Phil, I'm hoping in your report you'll give us an update on some the PTC matters, M9 status, homelessness in Babylon, as well as the overtime IG report that I referenced earlier. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. As I've reported each month, we are accomplishing an unprecedented amount of work across the system. Every week, we hit major milestones with our modernization projects and state of good repair work. And at the same time, we are working with all of our sister agencies to transform how we are organized and how we manage. I've said this before, and I'm committed to it, management, and it starts with me. We need to make sure that we provide our workforce the necessary tools, necessary direction, and support as we seek to accomplish work in a more timely and efficient manner. As this committee is fully aware, there has been much focus placed on overtime and time and attendance. While a fuller discussion of this topic will take place later at Finance Committee, I want to assure you that I and senior management at Long Island Railroad take overtime and time and attendance very seriously. Through September, our overtime hours worked is 13% lower than the same point last year. While some of this decrease is noted attributable to a more milder weather that we've had this year, a sizable portion of that savings is also attributable to management and oversight. I'd like to point to some noteworthy examples, and whether it's major capital work like our bridge and grade crossing eliminations or our aggressive maintenance on the forward, these are all examples of better planning, oversight, and direction from management in partnership with our labor leaders to ensure the success of our workforce. That having been said, I know there's plenty of room for improvement. We have made some important concrete strides this year. A total of 498 biometric clocks have been installed, and over 5,700 employees at Long Island Railroad have been enrolled in the system. Staff are using the clocks to punch in and out as we proceed through the testing phase. We will also be issuing new standardized overtime pre-approval forms in the engineering department, and we will strengthen administrative review of time and attendance records. In June, we instituted a new procedure at third-party work sites requiring employees to register in and out with an on-site manager. And beginning next month, I've mandated a new executive-level monthly review of overtime. Department heads and senior management will be required to report to the executive team on year-to-date results and the status of reform initiatives. Along with everyone else, we are appropriately holding ourselves accountable for performance. Finally, Long Island Railroad staff is working closely with agency staff to implement the 15 recommendations in the Morrison and Forster report. I look forward to continuing to report in progress in the coming months. And speaking of progress, from the high rises in Midtown Manhattan to the lodges out in Montauk, we've completed a massive amount of work through 9 major construction zones last month, including Sperry testing along the Port Washington branch. We replaced over 16,000 wooden ties along Babylon on Montauk branches. And we're continuing essential signal testing at Harold Interlocking, getting us one step closer to bringing riders to and from Manhattan's east side. And we've made great progress with positive train control. Long Island Railroad continues to run extended revenue service demonstration along Port Washington branch and one pilot line on the Hempstead branch. And we're scheduled to complete revenue service demonstration commitments on pilot line segments Babylon to Patchogue later this month. We've also received FRA approval to go into ERSD on all of our speed control segments, and we plan to go into extended revenue service demonstration on an additional 4 segments at the end of this month as well. And Metro-North has made excellent progress as well, with placing Danbury and Hudson North between Peekskill and Poughkeepsie into extended revenue service demonstration. And Metro-North has also received Federal Railroad Administration approval to go into ERSD on all of its respective territories. So a lot of positive progress going on with positive train control. And as part of the Long Island Railroad expansion project, the railroad workforce has been supporting our partners at Capital Construction to ensure that this project is completed. John Lieber, I'm sure, will expand on this later, but last week we announced that the second grade crossing at Covert Avenue was opened to vehicle traffic under the railroad tracks, to pedestrians and to bike users. No longer will trains be delayed due to gate malfunctions. No longer will drivers have to wait for long periods of time for trains to pass by, and no longer will neighbors hear the sounds of train horns passing. These eliminations have improved safety, the environment, and created accessible communities for our families to enjoy. And that's not all. 2 weekends ago, the new Nassau Boulevard Bridge was rolled in, a bridge that has seen over 20 bridge strikes, causing over 120 delays in 2018 and 2019 alone. And to date, we've experienced 0 bridge strikes at these locations that we've replaced under the mainline expansion project. Nassau Boulevard Bridge, in fact, was our 3rd most frequently hit bridge in the system. And these bridge replacements and building these underpasses, all part of the Long Island Railroad expansion, are a real success story. Our hats off to Jano and his team, as well as 3TC, and our own railroad workforce for their hand in completing critical parts of these projects. And the work is not slowing down. As you can see here on this slide, next month we will continue supporting our modernization projects on the Main Line and East Side Access. We're also replacing two vulnerable bridges out in East Hampton and surfacing track work in Jamaica area to improve reliability in this heavy trafficked area. And as we add more capacity along our right-of-way, we know the importance of rolling stock. With new M9s and continued maintenance on our existing fleet, we are improving service with fewer cancellations and fewer short trains. We even now have been able to protect trains in Jamaica as we continue to improve the reliability of our fleet. With all of these major efforts, we've not lost sight of the importance of maintenance. In order to keep our trains moving around these large construction zones, we have doubled down on maintenance to make sure that when we provide track outages, the remaining infrastructure is performing. Under Long Island Railroad Forward, we continue our aggressive maintenance program, including over 250 track circuits that have been upgraded, increasing their performance by 34%. Upgrading 23 switches in critical locations, increasing their performance by 20%. And just last weekend, we completed replacing a complex switch at Nassau Interlocking, a location that experienced 57 incidents, resulting in 338 train delays in 2018 and 2019 alone. On a daily basis, more than 260 trains travel over this area. And given this heavy traffic and the age of the switches, we are vulnerable to component failures and service disruptions. This switch has long been talked about, but never done because of its difficult location. I'm proud to say we've done it now, understanding that the impacts of doing the work was far worse than planned outages, albeit difficult outages. And as we replace and upgrade these components, we are seeing their availability and performance improve. So as we enter into the autumn months, we're continuing our commitment towards improving service. Building off of last year's strategies, we are taking an even more aggressive approach to tackle the fall leaf season and low adhesion that comes with it. I have a short video to demonstrate some of our new and enhanced initiatives. I give credit to the folks who know how to put that together. I certainly don't. And finally, we're examining our train schedules and how they match up with real arrival times due to low adhesion. And beginning in November, we will be modifying 4 a.m. peak trains, 2 on the Ronkonkoma, 1 in Farmingdale, and 1 Greenport train, to prepare riders for slightly slower speeds during the misty morning rush period. These modifications enable our train crews to operate more safely and protects our equipment, reducing the risk of flat wheels and short trains. So while we cannot control Mother Nature, we can or are taking steps to mitigate the negative effects. All of these efforts are underway and stabilizing our system and improving service for our riders. I think one of the things that was on that slide, you saw that laser train, that is something we've been working on. It is something that we believe will be an industry-leading opportunity for tackling low adhesion. And September's on-time performance was 90.5%. As we continue to meet major milestones and complete essential and critical work while keeping people moving across the railroad system. Year to date, our on-time performance continues to surpass last year's by 2.4%. As I mentioned earlier, train cancellations are down by almost 42%, and short trains are down by over 24%. And our ridership continues to grow. In September, we carried 149,000 more riders than last year, a 2% increase compared to September of 2018. And year to date, our ridership has increased by over 1.5 million riders, an increase of 2.6% compared to last year. These numbers demonstrate that we are moving in the right direction. All of these challenges that we are facing are being addressed one by one. We cannot afford to delay work as the needs and demands for improved mass transportation continues to grow. We will continue to challenge ourselves to think outside the box and to find innovative ways to tackle long-standing issues. So in closing, I want to acknowledge the railroad workforce for their efforts as we continue to transform. Also, I want to reiterate my gratitude for our riders for their support and their patience during this heavy construction season and as we progress into the next capital program. We've been carrying out an amount of work not seen in recent history on Long Island Railroad, all while improving service and growing ridership, which cannot be understated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. Questions, Vinny?
Comment. So, you know, after months of scrutiny and uncertainty generating from all kinds of varying reports and investigation, I'm hopeful that the dialogue that seems to be changing is that there are a lot of management issues relative to time and attendance, and I'm hopeful that that continues to be recognized, that you know, the agency has to do a better job of keeping track of things. The bigger point I want to make is, as we all move together to achieve those types of goals, that, you know, a system that relies on honesty doesn't necessarily mean that people are being dishonest. So I think that really needs to be said, and it needs to be said because of the presentation that we just saw. In all of the reports and all of the investigations that I've looked at and read, there's really not much mentioned about the level of work that's being done, right? So we know all this work is being done, but are we capturing, you know, we're investigating all of the holes in time and attendance, but nobody seems to be looking at what's the requirement for this overtime, the huge projects that need to get accomplished, and putting time to those projects. We can justify a lot of what we don't know by what's being accomplished. So clearly, when we're replacing high-speed switches and replacing, you know, a mile of rail, somebody's doing it. So maybe we should start capturing the progress of the work getting done and saying, okay, so we may be missing a lot about who's where and maybe not keeping track of things so close. But we do know this: we achieved a whole lot of work this past weekend on that dollar. You know, maybe that could make some sense to it. The engineering department, all of the departments know what things are going to cost relative to time ahead of time. That's how they order overtime, I would assume, right? That's what determines what kind of overtime you need. So we know ahead of time going in that we're going to need certain people to do certain jobs. Whether or not anyone's out there watching to make sure that it gets done, I get it, but it's getting done. And it's getting done on time, and I've heard over and over again, on time and early in a lot of cases, because you are providing some compliments to the workforce to recognize the work that's getting done. So I'm hoping we are turning a page in this chapter of scandal and abuse and accusations of fraud, because our workforce does not deserve it. The assumptions that we're not running things right And again, I'm not beating up on management so much either. There's responsibility on management's part. That's clear. It's in all of the paperwork that we've read. But moving forward, can we start cutting a break to the people that are getting judged by the public of possibly doing the wrong thing when they're out there sacrificing their time and efforts day in, day out, weekend in, weekend out, all the time? That's all. I'm hoping we're moving to a better direction.
Well said, Vinny. Any other comments, Bob?
Yeah, I plan to speak at greater length I guess, during the finance report and the discussion of overtime. But I would like to second Vinny's comments in that before I arrived on the scene, I read a lot of very harsh comments about the workforce in late April, May of this year, made by a member of our committee, made by the governor. And I think so far in half a year, I've seen very little to support those comments. And I think it is important that as we start basically every meeting, and every person in control and in senior position often speaks about how much they admire the workforce and how much the workforce has contributed. That isn't met many times with the other conversation, which is the constant drumbeat about the workforce and their inappropriate behavior that hasn't been demonstrated. So I think it is important to take data. One of the things that I will be talking about is if you take a look at the Empire report, it points you towards in a lot of directions that are not necessarily at workforce inappropriate behavior, but are where the problems are. And I think there's been a little of looking at the exact problem and more denigrating the workforce, which has been inappropriate. So I've been against it throughout, and I just want to second Vinny's comments.
No other comments for Phil or questions for Phil? Thank you, Phil. I'll hand it over to Lori now for the Long Island Railroad Safety Report.
Good morning. Our safety report can be found on page 43 in your book, and we're reporting on our performance through the end of August 2019. Before I talk a little bit about the numbers, though, I would like to bring to your attention that for over the last 2 decades, we've had a program in place that allows employees to nominate their fellow employees for going above and beyond the call of duty when it comes to safety. And it's the safety of our employees, our customers, and the communities that we serve. I'm pleased to share some photos with you. Labor and management leadership came together in September to recognize 51 of those employees who performed, who stepped up during events in 2018 to assist their fellow employees, riders, and the public. And these types of actions range from extinguishing fires along the right-of-way and in shops, providing life-saving CPR, Heimlich maneuver, reviving folks that may have been experiencing overdoses. And because of their vigilance, some teenage runaways were reunited with their parents. We had 2 instances where folks with dementia were reunited with their loved ones, somebody even as far away as North Carolina. And we also had our employees intervene in acts of potential suicide, where they were able to actually intervene with folks and get them the support and the help that they needed. One in particular, a young lady in Jamaica on the mezzanine, one of our customer service ambassadors intervened. She was able to be reunited with her mother, and at the ceremony we learned that this young lady now is successfully attending a college program and really has gotten her life back on track. So our employees are phenomenal, and they really do go above and beyond, and it's ceremonies like this that really help to bring to our attention the things that we may take for granted every day when we're riding 24/7, 365 on the rails. So, I want to commend these employees, and I'm glad we had the opportunity to share these photos with you from the ceremony. With that said, going back to the numbers, at the end of August, our average reportable customer injury rate decreased 14% from 2.26 injuries per million customers to 1.95. Our partnership with MTA Police, our TRACS program, reached over 74,500 participants through the end of August. And finally, for our reportable employee lost time injury rate, we increased from 3.03 injuries per 200,000 hours worked to 3.16, which is roughly a 4% increase. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, we'll go to the Metro North report. Kathy?
Thank you, Commissioner Law. East of Hudson, service delivery during the month of September was slightly below goal at 92.3, but which is still over 3% better than a year ago, despite some switch and signal issues on the New Haven line and in the vicinity of Grand Central Terminal. By line, OTP was 93.9 on the Hudson line, 92.9 on the Harlem line, and 91% on the New Haven line. Year to date, our on-time performance of 94.3 is above goal and exceeds last year's OTP by 3.7%. The reliability of our fleet also improved during the month of August, with an average of slightly more than 183,000 miles before breaking down and causing a delay, while year-to-date MDBF is above goal at 244,000 miles. The entire fleet is exceeding their year-to-date goals, and I thank our Maintenance of Equipment Department for their efforts in providing a more reliable fleet for our customers. At the same time, we continue to upgrade the facilities where our crews maintain the fleet. At Harmon Shop, we have taken beneficial use of the newly constructed EMU Annex and Consist Shop facilities. The EMU Annex is a 74,000 square foot building containing support and wheel shops. The Consist Shop is a 119,000 square foot, 2-track, 10-car length facility for inspection and unscheduled repairs. Our colleagues have been moving into these shops, and final testing of all areas is almost complete, advancing the railroad toward final completion of this $316 million design-build project under the current capital program. These facilities replace shops in the original Harmon Building 6, which is over 100 years old. Design of the $442 million new electric car facility, the last phase of our improvements of maintenance facilities at Harmon Shop, is ongoing with an expected completion date by our design-build team in 2022. Turning to our west of Hudson service, there was an improvement in September service delivery, with the Pascack Valley operating above goal at 93.4% and Port Jervis lines operating quite a bit better from last month at 88.8%. We continue to focus on maintaining the infrastructure to improve reliability. Our crews have been busy working with NJT crews on installing an average of more than 500 railroad ties a day on the Port Jervis line. There is also an interim schedule adjustment effective Sunday, November 3rd, 2019, which will result in minor changes to connecting trains at Secaucus Junction for Pascack Valley and Port Jervis line customers. We're adding 3 to 4 minutes to trains between Port Jervis and Suffern on November 3rd because of the effects of the ongoing cab signal implementation, and we're working with NJT on the analysis of the full cab signal implementation. This data will be incorporated into NJT's next schedule change on December 8th to reflect the revised operating conditions and to provide more reliable service for our customers. On the safety front, Metro-North conducted its annual full-scale emergency preparedness exercise on the New Haven Line's Cos-Cob movable bridge on September 29th. This scenario simulated a train emergency rescue, resulting in the evacuation of ambulatory and non-ambulatory passengers on an open deck bridge. In addition to Metro-North personnel, we coordinated this exercise with the MTA PD, the Greenwich first responders, including fire, police, and EMS, and the Connecticut Department of Transportation. The objectives of this exercise included familiarization with our train emergency preparedness plan, emergency response procedures and equipment, evaluating each agency's ability to conduct rescue operations on an open deck rail bridge, and demonstrating effective coordination between Metro-North and emergency response agencies during a multi-agency incident response to a train emergency. Justin's going to give the safety report in a little bit, but we want to point out that the safety report will indicate that we recently completed 100% installation of inward and outward facing cameras in all train cabs to more closely monitor both train speeds and engineers. Pivoting now to the Yankee playoffs, I was saying before this meeting that there are only two groups of people who are happy when the Yankees don't make it to the World Series. They would be the hardcore Mets fans and the Metro-North scheduling department. We would like to acknowledge, however, a successful effort by the Metro-North team in providing extra service to Yankees East 153rd Street Station in support of the Yankee playoff series. We provided 4,700 rides per game, 23,000 rides total through the divisional series and the LCS. Extra trains operated on all three lines to accommodate Yankee fans before and after the games, along with shuttle trains between Grand Central, Harlem 125th Street, and Yankees East 153rd Street stations, and connecting train service at Harlem 125th Street. It's easy for me to say. So better luck next year. We continue to focus on improving the customer experience by advancing the design build enhancement work at White Plains Station. This past week, we opened additional cooled and heated interior space on the platform for our customers. As part of this new space, our concessionaire Tim Hortons has moved up to the expanded waiting area to better serve our customers. This area is adjacent to the new bathrooms, which opened back in June, which are a significant upgrade from the older bathrooms. We will continue to expand the interior waiting areas on the platform. A new ticket office with 50 linear feet of space towards the south end of the platform will open at the end of November. An additional 90 linear feet of interior space will open by the end of the year. When this space reopens, the south escalator will have been refurbished and will reopen, giving our customers access to the platform from both escalators. The elevator, which is out until December 6th, is also being refurbished. During this outage, Metro-North is providing special accessible shuttle bus service to and from North White Plains and White Plains stations. As work at the platform level moves towards completion in the first quarter of 2020, we have begun to work on expanding and improving the lobby space as well as replacing the side platform, and all of this work will be completed in 2020. Finally, we are continuing our Customer Connect with Us forums with our outreach at Mount Kisco Station last Wednesday. South Norwalk Station will be on Tuesday, November 19th, and Grand Central Terminal will be on Tuesday, December 10th. This year, we've held Connect With Us forums at 10 other stations: North White Plains, Beacon, Brewster, Croton-Harmon, Nanuet, Harriman, Mount Vernon East, Bridgeport, Woodlawn, and Ossining. The program is ongoing, and the railroad will continue to host these forums next year. The program began in 2014, and it's an excellent opportunity for us to let the public know what we're doing to improve safety, service reliability, and customer communications. They also give us the chance to speak directly to our customers, listen and learn what matters to them, and find ways that we can to continue to enhance our service. Finally, I want to acknowledge the work of 4 retirees who are going to be leaving at the end of this month. I first would like to recognize Kim Smith, who's the Assistant Vice President of the Capital Planning and Programming Department in Metro-North's Planning Division. Kim has been at Metro-North almost from its inception, spanning over 32 years, beginning as a civil engineer in capital engineering and progressing through the legal, finance, and planning departments. In her current role, Kim has responsibility for the capital planning cycle from the 20-year needs assessment of future needs through the development of Metro-North's 5-year capital plan. She also oversees the groups related to Metro-North station area planning and transit-oriented development, as well as strategic planning and analysis, including fleet strategy, GIS, and Title VI. Over her long career, Kim has been a critical figure in some of the railroad's highest-profile capital initiatives related to ADA, Sandy Emergency Relief, and the initial Enterprise Asset Management Program. Next, I'd like to recognize Brian Sturman, who is retiring from Metro-North after more than 45 years in the transit field. Most recently, he has been at Metro-North for 11 years, serving as Director of Long-Range Planning. During that period, Brian's group has been responsible for the planning of Penn Station access and Port Jervis Line service improvements, among other projects. Prior to arriving at Metro-North, Brian worked in the federal government for 34 years, mostly at the FTA. Next, I'd like to recognize Mike Coppola. Mike joined Metro-North 36 years ago in an entry-level procurement position, and he retires as our Director of Operations Procurement. Mike worked in the procurement department during the implementation of the very first 5-year capital program, and he's been our resident expert on rolling stock spare parts, railroad maintenance, and operating material and supplies, as well as a resident subject matter expert on various PeopleSoft implementations beginning back in 2004. Mike has trained and mentored numerous procurement staff over the years. And last, but certainly not least, is Brian Bell, who joined Metro-North more than 30 years ago as a capital procurement contract administrator, and he retires as our Director of Capital Procurements. During his tenure at Metro-North, Brian's major procurements included the Upper Hudson high-level platform improvements, restoration of Grand Central Terminal, and the development of North End access passageway contracts. Brian is relied upon by his staff and by the entire company for his extensive knowledge in the procurement of construction services. The incredible talents and dedication of these 4 individuals will be very much missed by Metro-North, and I ask that they now please join me up front as we wish them the best in their retirement. Thank you.
Still in the way, huh? I'm always in the way.
And one more thing, while we're acknowledging departures, I would like to acknowledge the departure of Ronnie Hakem, who is going to be leaving at the end of this month, who's been a tremendous friend to Metro North. We're going to miss her terribly, and I want to thank her for her friendship and her advocacy on behalf of Metro North. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Any questions for Kathy?
Thank you, Kathy. You went right into the celebration, the rightful celebration of this talent, and I was going to ask you, can you repeat the names of the stations you're doing the visits to, please?
That we've already done or that we're going to be doing?
The ones you're going to be doing in the future, please.
South Norwalk, November 19th, and then December 10th, we're going to be at GCT. We're still in the process of putting together the schedule for 2020.
Good. Okay, thank you.
And Kathy, is Metro North using the train that Phil showed us with laser and high-pressured water to clean the leaves, or are we using Long Island Railroad as a pilot? And then
We
we'll
are
move
using
on?
Long Island Railroad as a pilot. We have our kind of old school power washer, as does Long Island, and we're sort of holding back to see how the laser works for Long Island.
Kevin, actually, that's an industry first, and we hope that it be a game changer for all the railroads across the country.
Kevin? Kathy, I would just like to commend you and your staff for the work you've done on White Plains. It's really starting to look good, and people are remarking about that. And the one thing I would like to say is that one thing I've noticed, which is something I hadn't noticed before, is in the new passenger waiting area where the bathrooms are, at 5:15 every morning, there's an employee out there with his big, whatever that machine is, mopping and sweeping those floors and cleaning, and that is excellent.
Yeah, I was just there the other day, and it hadn't been there for a few weeks. It looks great. It really does. So thank you very much for your kind words.
Thank you, Rhonda. Next, I'll hand it over to Justin for the Metro North Safety Report.
Thank you. Good morning. Justin Bonashek, Vice President, System Safety, Metro North. The safety report can be found on page 47. Customer injuries continue to trend less than 1 injury per million customers and are down over 8% versus the previous 12 months. Employee lost time injuries are down by nearly 10% over the previous 12 months. And our community outreach program tracks reached over 15,000 individuals in August, bringing the total through August to over 86,000. On September 26th, we held our second annual Customer Safety Day in Grand Central Terminal. To support this event, we introduced our newest safety initiative, the Rail Safety Passport. The passport is designed to promote rail safety to our youngest customers. Children present the safety passport to Metro North conductors on board our trains, who will in turn punch a hole in the child's passport. This program is a fun, creative way for our conductors to interact with our youngest customers and teach them about rail safety while traveling on board our trains. This Rail Safety Passport initiative was made possible through the grant we recently were awarded by Operation Lifesaver. This concludes the report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Hearing none. Tom Mitchell, Customer Service Report for Metro North.
Yeah, excuse me. Yes, good morning. Today I will highlight our lost and found operation, and hopefully we have a slide that comes up. This service is a service we offer that really no one thinks about until they lose something, and our lost and found staff is one of the best at returning a lost item to a customer. We recover about 30,000 items per year, and we do that by placing lost and found receptacles at our terminus yards. We move the items swiftly and efficiently through a network of station and service quality managers who make pickups while performing their daily jobs. Most impressive is our return rate, which is approximately 55%. So we return 55% of those articles back to their owners. Both of these stats are among the best in the industry. And we've received some media attention lately, as depicted by the photo of Mr. G from PIX with John Daly, who oversees our lost and found operation. I'd like to thank our lost and found team for their dedicated work day in and day out. Happy to take any questions.
Any
I'd
questions?
have to
No?
say that I was a person who needed the lost and found. I left my keys on the train, and they were there when I went to get them, so I was very happy.
Terrific. Phil, does Long Island Railroad have a comparable service?
We do. In fact, we just recently opened a new facility in a much better situated location in Penn Station. The original Lost and Found was tucked away in a corner, harder for our customers. The new facility has more room. It allows us to better keep the inventory, and I believe our return rate is very similar. I think about 55% is what if I recall with our customers. And it's an area where when you reunite folks with their belongings, it is a great thing, and people are very pleased that we do have, and both Metro North and Long Island Railroad have good success with inventorying and getting the property back to folks.
And for both, what happens to all the things that go unclaimed? Do we donate them? Do we sell them? Or is it like Ralph Cramden does? He had to keep the suitcase with all the money in it.
No, we both have a contract with a company that we sell them to. So Metro North and Long Island do the same thing, and we sell boxes of low value items, like a $30 a box, I believe. We sell bundles of umbrellas. We sell low item cell phones at $4 each, and then the higher volume items we actually have appraised, and we sell at 30% of that value. So we do about 60,000, 70,000 a year.
Anything else? No, thank you very much. We're going to move on now to our capital construction report from Jano Lieber.
Yeah, I can't compete with the interest of level and lost and found generated last week in the press. But let me tell you about the third track project. First, I just wanted to share with the board an anecdote about last week. APTA, the Industry Trade Association for Transit nationally, was in town holding their annual convention. I actually got to tour the Federal Transit Administration leadership, which is one of our major funders on East Side Access, and we started in obviously the Great Hall of Grand Central and took them downstairs. And I talked to them about the volumes of people who were, and it was at the height of rush hour, Kathy. It was at 8:45, and they were astonished. And then I went over with them the volumes of the Metro North customers and the 400,000 people who use the subway station every day, 400,000 trips, and the additional trips that are going to be out of East Side Access. And between Penn and Grand Central, you're talking about, by many multiples, the largest volume of ridership of transit facilities in North America, by a lot. And then we talked about, and I took them on tours on the subway as well, and the volumes of people. So it really brought home, I think, to our partners in Washington, the way that this system is really the centerpiece of our national mass transit system. And I think it's a point that we need to keep carrying, because it is so essential to New York's business model and to the future of mass transit nationally, that we demonstrate the effectiveness and innovation in this area. So that's my segue into the third track project, which Phil covered a lot of this, so I'm going to try to go really fast. We are on time and on budget. The project is about a third completed. If you include the portion that's going to be funded in the next capital program, it's closer to 30%, and we still have change orders in roughly in the 20s in terms of number, and we're net positive on the change orders, meaning we're more money coming back than being added to the contract cost, which is sort of something special that we love to enjoy. Construction activity, as Phil mentioned, is up and down the line. Every different portion of the 10-mile area, especially, and we tend to bring you news of some of these major bridge and undergrade crossing achievements and weekends, but there is a ton of work going down on every component. Remember, the essence of the third track Long Island Road expansion project is it is a bundled project which uses the outages to accomplish all kinds of state of good repair work alongside some of this major expansion work. So it's a model in so many ways. Phil mentioned that we had the Nassau Boulevard Bridge rolled in on October 6th in Garden City, moving the clearance from about 11 feet up to 14, And this was a bridge that had been hit 16 times in the past 21 months. Every time there's a bridge strike, there has to be an inspection to make sure that the bridge is secure before service can be restored to its normal speeds and frequencies. So it is a huge cause of delays, and we're proud of that. There's the gentleman, I want to be respectful to the gentleman who's mentioned this in his testimony a couple times in the public section of this hearing, of this committee meeting. We definitely have tried to, again, look at new ways to serve customers better, rather than strictly operating buses that follow the routes, to take people to other branches with buses and to team up with the Nassau County bus system. We think it's been successful. I'm going to take another look at it in light of the points that some of the gentleman has made at the last couple of committee hearings. But we did increase rail service on the Hempstead branch. We are trying to use the rail system to get people where they want to go, rather than producing multiple duplicative bus systems. And our experience has been the ridership has not been that great. But as I said, I'm going to take another look at that in light of the testimony that we've heard. On Saturday, October 12th, we opened the Covert Avenue underpass in New Hyde Park. It's another achievement in terms of safety and the elimination of all the problems associated with grade crossings, not least safety. And I was pleased to go through a little pantomime where I handed back the railroad crossing sign to the county executive of Nassau, because we don't need that anymore, county executive. It is a county road, everybody's excited. And interestingly, folks who had, it's fair to say it's not a secret that there had been some resistance to the third track project. Commissioner Law, Chairman Law, was very acutely aware of it because he was part of the leadership of what was trying to make it happen. And you see as the project is making progress, people who are previously opposed showing up and acknowledging, I wouldn't say eating crow, but they are acknowledging the success of the project and growing confidence in the communities that they represent. And as people come out to watch these things happen, as we roll bridges in, as we use this new innovative technology to create a precast concrete underpass and then jack it into place and use a remote sort of drone to compact the earth and all that innovation. People are coming out and they're admitting that their ideas are changing a little bit about Long Island Railroad projects and mega projects in general. We started 3 additional grade crossings: New Hyde Park, Willis Avenue, and of course School Street, which was the location of that terrible accident in February of this year. And all of this is being done under the single design-build contract that is our model for MTA projects going forward. And again, another aspect of that model, and Phil alluded to it, is that all the piggybacking that's going on, including that incredibly important Nassau One interlocking, which is literally a linchpin of this entire project, and which is making huge progress on some of these outages that we've put into place for other bridges and so on. Floral Park, we're doing 3 elevators, and because everybody is understandably, we've got so much accessibility work coming in the next program, I just note that in Floral Park, we got 3 elevators for under $6 million. And why are we able to do it inexpensively? One, there is no infrastructure to move. Folks, when they look at accessibility projects, they tend to focus on the elevators. It is not, the majority of the cost is not the elevator. It's moving the infrastructure, moving the utilities, and in many cases creating new structural openings through old structure that is filled with utilities and other elements. That's what you're encountering in the subway. Here, where we have a pretty clean site and we're able to do it design build, to add it to bundle it with an existing project, and with very little customization and so on, and when you have a structure that you can attach it to, and it's uncomplicated, you can see that we can do it inexpensively. So I just wanted to share that with the board. And finally, you see huge, there are 18,000 linear feet of this sound wall and retaining wall going in. It is essential both to the being able to build the third track project within the existing 65-foot right-of-way. It's also essential to the sort of quality of life issue that you are diminishing noise, and especially for people whose homes back right up to the railroad right-of-way, and that is very much on schedule. And finally, because we all, these projects are exciting and they have a lot of innovation, we are doing a ton of community outreach. We've talked about it a lot. Here's part of this is that we've engaged a whole mess of college students, and on October 18th, there's an organization of structural engineers called the Moles, and we had them do a student day where all of these college students came and learned more about that aspect of the construction trade and the engineering trade, and they learned a lot about the complexities of the third track project. We're continuing, I'm not going to delay on it, we're continuing to use KPIs to monitor all of our performance, all elements of our performance. That's the way you get a good job. Look at whether you're doing your piece. We're 99% of all submittals are on time, and we're actually a week short of the deadline for submittal review and return on 75% of them. And importantly, to the issue of building confidence among the contracting community that they can give us their best prices, less than 3% of our outages have been canceled by the railroad. And I credit Phil and the leadership at the railroad for maintaining commitment to outages so that the contractors know when they put together the team, the logistics, the workforce, the equipment to get an outage, that they're not going to have that work and that productivity taken away at the last minute. That is going to yield better pricing in the big projects to come. So we'll talk in future about all the specifics of our KPI management structure, but this is just some evidence of the success we've had. I do want to credit, as Vinny mentioned and others have mentioned, the Long Island Railroad Force Account workforce who is really intimately involved in every one of these successes. The contractor can't get the work done with their private sector workforce without the railroad facilitating it, flagging, track work, the signal, the third rail, all of that is Long Island Railroad workforce, and we've benefited from their support tremendously. Thank you.
Great update, Jano. Just great to hear the continued good news. Thank you. Any questions for Jano? All right, Jano, thank you very much. We'll see you at CPOC. Just reminder, we have 30 minutes to get through everything else on the agenda, and we will finish at 10 a.m. So just keep that in mind as we go through the rest of the agenda. Next item, I understand Tom Quigley will be speaking. No, that's next. Next is our MTA police report. And we have Chief Joe McMahon here for the police report. Chief.
Good morning. Although we were flat for crime in the month of September, we continue to be down year to date a good 10%. For Long Island Railroad, the reduction is a little bit greater at 13%. And for Metro North Railroad, we're down just about 11%. That said, even though grand larcenies are down year to date, it continues to be the bane of our existence. We had 15 grand larcenies just last month, 5 on the Long Island Railroad and a total of 10 on the Metro North Railroad. But again, it comes down to people leaving their unattended packages, people that fall asleep on the train, they wake up, all of a sudden they discover something is missing, whether it be a backpack or their train ticket. Along those lines, there were a couple of incidents involving the Shake Shack employees themselves at Grand Central. So we've taken upon ourselves to at least address the situation with the employees downstairs to be a little bit more careful with their own personal property. We are looking at this point for the year 2020 of designing a sign-in location up at 125th Street so that we can reduce the amount of time that officers may be not present at the location due to a change in the tours. This way they will sign in and sign out at 125th Street, decreasing the amount of time that the station itself might be unattended. If this goes through, and it should go through pretty swiftly, we will be up there 24/7, 365 days a year with minimal amount of downtime for the officers changing their shifts. The number of arrests that we've been making year to date has also been on a slight uptick due to the excellent work that the officers have been doing. Our clearance rate, as far as the Detective Bureau goes, continues to be doing well, and we seem to be doing very well across the board in each of the different regions. Staten Island in particular, we had a number of incidents involving youths on the Staten Island Rapid Transit and the Staten Island Railway. And in most of those occasions, we've been able to make an arrest because it's student-on-student crime, usually at the end of the day.
Chief, do you have any update? I thought Chief Monahan had one for my request regarding Babylon Station and the aggressive panhandling and homelessness problem there that is disturbing commuters.
As a matter of fact, Chief Monahan himself met with the Department of Social Services Commissioner, Ms. Lapierre, along with the Chief of Patrol for Suffolk County Police Department, Bob Brown, along with the District Commander for District 1 out there in Suffolk County, to come up with a coordinated plan to address the situation at that particular location. The crimes at that particular location are down significantly from 2018. There were 22 incidents, actual crimes, at that location through the month of September. This year there's only 5. In addition, our summons activity is about 100 summonses issued for different minor violations, mainly consisting of smoking on the platform, of open alcohol containers inside the facility itself, and a couple of instances inside the restroom. So our activity there has been well. A coordinated effort is now being set up with the Department of Social Services and the Suffolk County Police. We expect continued success at that location.
Thank you, and I trust you that you, Chief Monahan, will be joining me and Phil as we meet with the elected officials in the community at the end of the month.
Yes, he will.
Thank you. Any questions for Chief? Hearing none. Now, I understand Tom Quigley is here. He'll be speaking on a joint action item related to Siemens and Bombardier. Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Law, I would much rather have a discussion of PTC's current status before we then engage in discussion of this agreement. I think it impacts it significantly, and I'd like to discuss that first, please.
I thought your request was we'll hear from Tom, then we'll have the PTC report, and then we'll take action.
I'm fine with that. If you defer the action until after, that's fine. Thank you.
That is what I shall do. Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. After extensive negotiations, I'm pleased to report that the railroads have entered into an agreement with the Siemens Bombardier Consortium with regard to the December 2020 FRA deadline for positive train control certification, subject to ratification by the MTA board. There's a short contract modification that essentially provides that if the December 2020 deadline is missed due to the fault of the Siemens Bombardier Consortium, then the consortium will be liable for actual damages sustained by the railroads attributable to Siemens Bombardier's fault. The only limitation is a cap of $2 million per month per railroad, or $4 million per month, with a total cap of $50 million per railroad, or $100 million. This is a brand new obligation not in the existing contracts, and it's in addition to any other remedies that may be available to the railroads. In exchange, the railroads have agreed that the Siemens Bombardier Consortium is not subject to the initiation of debarment proceedings at this time, because as part of additional negotiations between the railroads and the consortium, the parties have worked towards a resolution of multiple outstanding change orders, previously accrued liquidated damages, and scheduling adjustments that needed to be made as a result of these change orders. In sum, this agreement is a total win for the railroads. I would ask the committee to recommend it, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Tom, could you stick around until we have the PTC report in case we have any questions and related to the action item?
Yes, I'd be delighted to.
Good. Okay, so we'll pause on the action item, and I'll hand it over to Phil and Kathy for an update on the PTC.
It's a joint information item, which is in the book. Debbie Chin is here to either present it, or if you just want to plunge right into questions, as you prefer.
Deb, unless you have some intro remarks, Debbie, I do have a couple of specific questions. And I would ask that Nabil and whomever else from the IEC join us, because I think it's quite pertinent. And Tom, there is a question that's going to relate to you out of this one. Unfortunately, because the documents come on Thursday or so of last week, I only didn't have that much time to notice this. So Debbie, I noticed between the September and the October Long Island Railroad working schedules and sequences. So I'm in terms of the page number, I'm looking at slide page 71 of 208, which is the complex Gantt chart with multicolors. Between the September, do you have the page, Debbie, I'm talking about? Yeah, I don't want to, I'll wait till you get there. Okay, so between the September and the October documents, and thankfully my eagle eyes were able to find this despite having a degradation in my flight, my sight since I was a pilot. The part that's the Penn Station to Harold interlocking was moved at least 3 months from my eyeballing it out. It was moved, meaning it being the ERSD, Extended Revenue Service Demonstration. It was moved out from a date of, I'm just going to see if I can get you the exact date by my eyeballing. It was moved out from what had been in September's board meeting from July to this board meeting, which is now November. And I'm concerned, well, actually, why don't you just describe what happened, first of all, related to that material move, because that is a material move, putting us very close to the deadline.
Yeah, so Harold Mainline 0 to 3 is a pretty complicated area. And if you look on the slide that talks about the risks, this area was, the RSD date was slipped several months. And this is more, I mean, the contractor's schedule shows a more positive date if you look at the dashboard in the MTA website. So, you know, it was originally the end of the year. It got slipped to June. A lot of that has to do with getting information from Amtrak. You're familiar with that particular area. We simplified the design by including the Amtrak territory into our safety server database. We did get the database information from Amtrak in September. However, what we didn't get was the safety service solution so that we could test the interface in our lab during FAT, which is scheduled in November. So with the delay in getting the 3.6 software, which then delayed 3.7, which is required for Harold, and a couple of things, you know, we're working. I opted to slip that date to October with the caveat that we're working right now to mitigate that delay. So it's kind of like setting expectations.
And
I mean,
Debbie, I am totally, I appreciate what you're doing. This is not a gotcha. I'm raising this, so my fellow board members realize that being that far up to the deadline, November 1st, is 2020, gives us 2 months of more slippage from a very complicated piece that is a software issue, that is an interoperability issue with another party. And so my chest hurt when I saw that. So Tom, the question to you, sir, is which schedule are we using for this agreement? Are we using the schedule that was as of September, or are we using this most recent schedule, which is as of the one of this week? Because I'll tell you that if we're now adjusting to giving a deadline of that date, we are really precariously, and I'm going to come to Nabil next, precarious situation here.
So, Commissioner, we are using the current adjusted deadlines.
So I just want to be mindful then, we've moved the goalposts for Siemens and Bombardier very, very close to the deadline. And that is, I am concerned about that. I am supportive of the agreement. I'm very happy for what you and Pat and the governor's office and Rob and Larry have helped negotiate. And I appreciate this committee and all the work we have done jointly to push PTC, because it was a very lonely topic a couple of years ago, and now we have the full force of this board behind it. But I'm very concerned about the goalposts moving so close to the deadline. Now, I would like to ask Nabil, sir, those on the board probably have not read the CPOC document, but I think it's important to talk about it. because the IEC wrote some language that describes the status of PTC that I found concerning, or at least questioning. I'll ask Nabil first to read the paragraph that I'm referring to in your summary with the word that I find concerning, and then from there you can explain what you mean by that word.
Yeah, okay. Good morning. So in our CPAC report, we do reach a conclusion, and the conclusion states that while progress was made in various aspects of project implementations, delays in transponder design, software development, and field testing have reduced project contingency for Long Island Railroad to 3 months. The IC is of the opinion that the project has a fair chance of achieving the December 2020 deadline, provided that the system integrator is able to provide software release 3.7 to Long Island Railroad on schedule, that Amtrak provide data and software needed for interoperability, and that Metro North is successful in integrating the M8 fleet into PTC operation.
Nabil, can you explain what you mean by a fair chance? Because as you know, at least for me, as I described to you in a sidebar, the word fair could be, there's a fair chance, yeah. Or it could be, oh, there's a fair chance. So can you describe fair to me? Because I don't know what fair means in your language.
Well, I mean, our statement or our conclusion is in view of the risks that we identified in the report, there is a fair chance of...
So Nabil, I learned in 3rd grade you can't define the word by using the word, if you may remember. So can you once you put a number on it, is fair a 50% chance? Is fair a 10% chance?
60 to 65% chance. And if these risks and challenges are addressed in a reasonable time frame, then there is a good chance that the December 2020 deadline will be achieved.
So we have a 2/3 shot at getting it done. This far out, a year and 2 months from now, we still only have a fair shot, only have a 60% chance.
60 to 65%, and one of the problems or one of the risks is that you have the Amtrak issue providing the information and software to the system integrators. This way they can deploy the interoperability software. Also, with respect to integrating the M8 fleet into PTC operation, this effort depends on a third-party PTC provider, namely Alstom. We see slow progress in achieving this integration. We also see a need to finalize the scope of work and develop a timeline to qualify the M8 for PTC operations. So as I said, if these issues are addressed in a reasonable time frame, then there is a good chance for the December 2020 to be met.
One last thing. I'm sorry I'm acting like a prosecutor because I didn't go to law school, but I think this is really very important. One, Tom, as you have conversations with Siemens Bombardier, because as you recall, I asked them to come here the first time in January and multiple times since, this agreement, this financial agreement, cannot be an excuse for intentionally paying their way to not do the work. Because I'll tell you, $2 million a month is not anything to a corporation the size of Siemens. Bombardier is far smaller, but still, it's not a huge number. And I would not like them to make a judgment call on their board to say, $2 million, that's fine, we can wait it out, it's fine. Because this is not a joke. This is orders of magnitude more important than lost and found discussions. This is the most important thing this committee will do this year and next year, without question in my book. Whether capital aside, fair increases, the number one thing we must get done. And this agreement cannot be a salve for their efforts to try and actually get this thing done on time.
Yeah, Commissioner, this agreement is in addition to, it is not in substitution for their performance. And I have spoken to Lee Sander of Bombardier and Mark Buncher of Siemens, both of whom have said they will be here in November to address this board directly.
Great to hear, and to just reiterate Neil's comments. And Neil, thank you for your leadership on this issue, seriously, and all your questions were spot on. We don't want their money, we just want them to get the job done. So good report, good questions. we're looking to make a recommendation for the approval of the agreement that Tom and his team negotiated, and it'll be approved at the Finance Committee, I believe. Is that correct?
At the full board meeting
At the
on
full board
Wednesday.
meeting on Wednesday. Neil, with your questions asked, I'll take a motion to recommend, seconded by Rhonda. Any questions on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The recommendation is approved. Thank you, Tom. You know, Vinny made a good point before about commending his workforce, and deservedly so. And I'd like to also commend folks like you and Jano. It's great that we have such great top management here as well. So I thank you. With that, we have some any other joint agency action items? There are two. So the PTC report we just did, and what's the second one? And let's be brief, we have 11 minutes.
Yeah, the only other joint information item is the 2020 preliminary operating budget for both railroads, and this is really just for public comment purposes. There's nothing for the committee to do at this point.
Correct.
The Long Island Railroad information item, Phil, can we just refer people to the information in the book on
It's
this?
in the book. It's about the track work that's in the book. If any questions?
And Kathy, I see we have two information items regarding a license agreement.
Yep.
Will be voted on the Finance Committee. Anything you want to say on that?
Yeah. No, so there's just two. The first is the track program quarterly update, which is just in there for information if anybody has any questions. And the second is something that will, a real estate item that will be presented at Finance regarding a new tenant at Croton Harmon Station.
Any questions for Kathy? Procurements, Long Island Railroad procurements. I see we have two for the railroad and none for the capital construction or Metro North. I will turn it over to Dennis for Long Island Railroad procurements.
Good morning. As the Chairman said, there are two items in this month's procurement package for Long Island Railroad in the amount of $3.1 million. One item in the non-competitive section, excuse me, and one item in the competitive section. No items in the ratification section. The item in the competitive section is a request for MTA board approval to award a contract to Siemens Mobility in an aggregate amount of not to exceed $3.1 million over a 36-month period to purchase crossing gates, electronic module, and various electronic components, signals, signal light lenses, circuit boards, relays, and other proprietary components for signal systems manufactured by Siemens. This will be a 36-month contract, and we will order parts on an as-needed basis. The item in the competitive section is a request for the MTA board to approve a resolution declaring competitive bidding it to be inappropriate and impractical to award a contract to replace motor generators at both Babylon and Hillside. And we'll come back to the board with an award for that when we complete the procurement. Happy to take any questions.
All right, well, but for the agreement that Tom and his team just negotiated with Siemens and Bombardier, I would not be interested in moving this motion forward. But in light of the fact that we seem to have, on the path to resolving our issues, and it also seems like we don't have a choice, it's for any young folks in the audience, if you're smart, get together with some engineers, form a new company. There's an opportunity for competition. It just doesn't seem like there is any, but it would be a great entrepreneurial effort to generate some competition here. But since we don't really have any, and since we have a new agreement where we're on a path to a resolution of some of the issues that we've had with them in the past, I'll say all that in the form of a motion. Is there a second? Second. So moved. Any comments? All in favor? Aye. That motion is approved. And as for the commencement of the RFP for the replacement of the two signal power generators at Hillside and Babylon, take a motion by David, seconded by Veronica. Any comments on the motion? All in favor of beginning the RFP? Aye. No, nobody opposed. Both procurements are approved. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
See, we're down almost to the end to our agency reports on operations. Phil and Kathy, any updates?
In the book is the performance summaries, operation reports, and our performance metrics. With regards to finance, I'd like just to report through the end of September. The railroad has generated $952 million in revenue and spent $1.47 billion in a net operating loss of $517 million. Due to higher than expected revenues, though, this net operating loss through September is lower than what was assumed in the July mid-year forecast.
And then for Metro North, our reports are also in the book. Based upon results through the end of September, Metro North generated $792 million in revenue and spent $1,186 million, or $1.2 billion, resulting in a net operating loss of $394 million. Lower than expected revenues, mainly reimbursable project receipts, are partially offset by lower than expected expenditures, and the net operating loss through September is higher than what was assumed in the mid-year forecast.
I had a question regarding, at least for the Long Island Railroad part in the book. I know we spent time in other committees talking about fare evasion, especially with the transit system, but I was looking at the charts regarding fares not collected rate. And so we actually send out auditors, and they on the train seeing if the conductors are collecting. And what type of dollar amount is this? Is this a significant issue, or is it not comparable to what we're seeing with the city system?
It's not at all comparable in terms of order of magnitude, but I'm actually going to pass this over to Sue Doring, who's been sort of leading up this effort for Metro North in terms of the numbers. But it's really a drop in the bucket in comparison to what you're seeing in the transit system.
So for Metro North, the fare not collected rate for the month of September was 1.5%, which was down from 5.4% from August. The fare not collected loss, revenue lost through the end of September was approximately $11.4 million. Annualized, that's about $15.3 million.
And I'll let Mark Young cover for Long Island Railroad, but the auditors do a great job of helping us identify areas where we can improve, and there are a number of initiatives underway where we are working on the fare not collected. So, Mark?
Yeah, no, MTA Audit's been a really great partner in terms of helping us beef up our programs, both railroads.
Yeah, and on that point, both railroads recently asked MTA Audit to do additional onboard reviews than in the past, so that's a big help to us in terms of the sampling. Similar to what Sue reported for Metro North, September was a low number, so fare not collected was only 3.6% for the month. Last September, it was 6.6%. And year-to-date, the rate is 5.4%. Last year, it had been 7.3%. So we've seen progress in the area, fare not collected. As we reported at the Finance Committee last month, we estimate the annual value of lost revenue to fare not collected is approximately $30 million per year at Long Island Railroad.
It's significant, and I think we need to be cognizant of this issue. Every dollar not collected is a dollar then we need to hit the commuter or the taxpayer for. And so, you know, I know it's sort of buried in the middle of the report, but it's an important issue that we should continue to stay on top of. Bob?
Yeah, we did discuss this at length at the finance, and I think we need to keep coming back to it. But the overall numbers then are well over $300 million in lost revenues from transit and from the entire system. And I think we need to be clear in terms of where we're using resources and how to get the best bang for the buck. And so clearly 10 million, 15 million is less than 275 million, but it's real money, and I think that we need to make sure that there is a real return on investment in the type of efforts we make towards dealing with this.
I agree, Bob, and that's why I raised the issue. It's important. Again, every dollar matters. Is there any other business that any member of the committee wants to raise? With not, a motion by Neil to adjourn. All in favor? And we're done by 10 o'clock. Thank you all.